Let's try something not new, but something, yeah, something new. Let's try something new. Let's try a topic fired from the hip about some notes I've been working on or something I've been researching. The science of forgiveness, self-reconciliation. I've been hacking away on that for a while now. So, focus. Forgiveness. Forgiveness really ain't that big a deal until you have something that's unforgivable, until you have something that is unacceptable, until you get to a place in life to where you have to accept the unacceptable, to where you have to forgive the unforgivable. And most of all, you have to come to a place where you forgive, which does not mean letting a person that betrayed you or people that betrayed you back in your life, but a forgiveness of self and a reconciliation of self. Because it seems to be when a betrayal happens, a person becomes more, maybe not more, but just as they have just as much of a grudge towards themselves as they do the perpetrator.
She fell asleep. Oh,
Hang on, I gotta shut the door. Oh, you're welcome. Hang on, I'm making a video. Yeah, baby, be passed out. Okay, I'm back. Anyways, where were we? Okay, now that we've talked about that, and you're probably thinking, whoop-de-fucking-do, what's it mean? It don't sound like nothing special. Check this out. Generational trauma. People who have generational trauma and don't know they have generational trauma, they fall into the pitfall of being stuck in grudges, hates. They take on more kinds of traumas than anyone else. You know, at first, I was really skeptical about traumas like that until it got solidified when I seen personally, how real it is. Let's go through two stories. One story is the first one, which I found to be fascinating, which I only labeled as a phantom pain or a phantom injury, because the injury didn't happen to that person, but it happened to one of their parents. Okay, listen to this story. Picture this. Early 1990. A child is born by this couple, young couple. They're only 16 and 17 years old. The mom takes the baby boy and runs to Florida because she wants the kid to have a good life. And here in the Midwest and southwestern Missouri is ultra tweakerville back then. I mean, just meth labs everywhere, all up and down the hills, down the frickin' roads, everywhere, the whole goddamn thing. Anyways, besides all that, she wanted him to have a better life, so she runs away with the baby. She goes to Florida. 15 years goes by, 18 years goes by, but this child keeps having this pain like in his hip. And they take him to the doctors and stuff like that, and can't find nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with his hip. There's no bones grown wrong or no cartilage or joint problems or nothing. Everything's completely fine. But yet he keeps having these problems in his hip, and it's a real pain that he's experiencing, and it can't be explained. Check this out. Without even knowing his dad, check this out. His dad, which is a brother of mine, when we were kids, he got hit by a cattle truck, and it busted up his leg and his hip real bad. I mean, shattered him. That pain, that trauma went through his seed and into that fetus and grew in that baby and into that now grown man who's in his upper 20s. And that boy, without knowing that happened to his dad, see, if he would have known about it, I would have said that seed was planted in his mind, and it's psychological, and it was, kind of like a placebo effect or whatever. But he didn't know nothing about it. That kind of trauma. And then there's the psychological and emotional trauma too that happens too. Let's look at another story. And this story, I don't know the people personally. It was something I seen on YouTube, but the researchers that were talking about it, they're very well respected, and I have the utmost respect for these people and their research. I assume most of their stuff is probably spot on or accurate as can be. Anyways, they were dealing with someone that a teenage girl, and she was going through therapy, and she kept having this freak out when she'd get around people that were like smoking a cigar or something that smelled like a cigar, and she would go into like panic attacks. And that's not normal. No, I mean, normally if a person doesn't smoke, that stuff is just obnoxious. It smells like shit. You don't want to be around it, and there's that. But no, this chick was like going full on freak out, panic mode, which is highly irregular. Anyways, and then it turned out that her mother, when her mother was about her age, when she was young, she had been brutally raped by these crazies. And there was one of them that was smoking a cigar. So that smell of that cigar was associated with that trauma. And she never told her daughter about none of that. But yet that trauma went through to her daughter. Trippy shit, huh? Anyways, it makes you wonder. You think it's like the way we grow and the way our psychological facilities and our emotional facilities are, and the way we take on emotional traumas from the previous generation and maybe even a couple generations back. It's like we hardly even got a chance of having a decent life without fucking everything up. God, it's insane. Happens to rich people, poor people, middle-aged people, older people. No one is exempt. It affects all of us. Traumas touch everyone. Everyone's affected by it in so many ways. Trauma. Anyways, these stories, I have to tell you that I am not a clinical psychologist or anything. I'm not a licensed therapist or anything. So everything I share on my channel is purely, they're just stories. Fiction. We'll call them fiction. They're just stories. They're just things made up, so to speak. Just things to think about for research, for study, things to ponder. Oh, I shouldn't use that word ponder. That's more of a hillbilly word. I need to clean up my language. I need to learn how to talk, right? So, because there's so many people learning the English language, proper English is what I need to do. So anyways, the CTA is the call to action. Ask yourself, honestly, do you or any of your loved ones have a generational trauma that they haven't worked through? Or do they possibly have a generational trauma that should be addressed and healed promptly and without regret? You know, I'm kind of leaning towards the fun way of the healing, psilocybin, the hallucinogenics, the psychedelic healings, but not like the hippie kind. I'm talking about the scientific way, the ceremonial way. That's what I'm talking about. Doing it right. Like certain Native American tribes, like the Native American Church, the NAC, I think that's what it's called. They can legally have peyote. They can legally have these psychedelics and use them in their ceremonies, and their purification ceremonies, and their healing ceremonies. And they work like a charm for people who have traumas, people stuck in depressions that just can't get out of it, or people just need to kickstart. just need a fresh start, just a kickstart, just a reset, a defrag and reboot. I'll try to share a little story with you real quick, like one of my traumas, and I call it a trauma, a resentment, a deep-seated resentment. I'm talking straight up hate that I couldn't shake for several years in a row. No matter how I did it, I tried prayers on it. I asked God to remove it, asked God to fix it. Never could. It just seemed like it almost seemed like that revenge type hate just seemed to be growing, actually. I mean, I tried so many different angles, and then this one angle came to me. And I was listening to this person's story about they had something very similar, and they had gone through the proper channels, and they had experienced psilocybin, and they had the same problem. And what they needed to do was figure out how to change that hate and experience it as a pain or a sadness or a sorrow, and grieve it and get it out like that. And then it could be processed out and then gotten rid of and healed from. And that worked for them. And I thought, my God, I'm on it. I started studying it, started watching a bunch of YouTube videos about it, and it's like, I'm doing it. I'm going to find a way somehow. And believe it or not, it didn't take me but several months to find some psychedelic mushrooms. So I got prepared about it and talked up with a friend, a closed-mouthed friend, and got that anger risen to the top, and kind of did a personal ceremony and locked myself in an apartment, and had some 3 movies picked out for with intention to watch and to hopefully change that hate into a sadness so I could process it out. And I took those psychedelic mushrooms. Lo and behold, it was totally life-changing. Totally life-changing. Now, do I recommend that everybody just jump out there and do psychedelic mushrooms if you got a grudge on somebody? No, shit, no. That is some. I mean, that's a serious decision. Very serious. Anyways, that's 15 minutes. So call it to action. We already talked about that. So have a good one. See you in the funny papers.